The surviving pilot told what he saw in the Bermuda Triangle. It is simply impossible to believe. So, we will talk about a small single-engine plane Beechcraft Bonanza. On board the pilot Bruce Gernon, there were 2 passengers, his father and a business partner. They took off from Andros Island in the Bahamas and headed to the northwest coast of Florida. It was December 4, 1970. If you draw a map and draw a line connecting Bermuda, Puerto Rico, Miami, and leading back to Bermuda, what do you get? Yes, this triangle is a very sinister place, notorious for the fact that over the past few centuries alone, more than 2,000 ships and 200 aircraft have mysteriously disappeared in it. And Bruce Gernon's plane, and also visited his hungry embrace. It was an ordinary flight, which Bruce had already made dozens of times. Traveling usually took about an hour and a half, and no problems ever arose, as, of course, any mysterious phenomena. The man on board was no more worried than the rest of us during our daily commute. But this time everything will be different because they will have to face really inexplicable and, perhaps, even mysterious things. Bruce took off and began to gain altitude. Strange things started happening from the very beginning. At an altitude of about 300 meters, he noticed a small cloud ahead. Suddenly it started to grow, and this was not due to the fact that the plane was flying closer. The clouds actually increased significantly in size. Bruce had to fly through it and fly out the other side. Another mysterious cloud appeared at an altitude of 3,500 meters. It was so huge that Bruce had no choice but to fly through it too. So he concentrated, took a deep breath, and the plane entered the cloud. It became as dark as night around the plane, so that not a single ray of light could be seen. But it wasn't a thundercloud and it wasn't raining. Bruce began to worry. Suddenly he saw flashes of white light. They suddenly appeared and disappeared with the speed of lightning. But our pilot knew for sure that it wasn't lightning. The flashes were so bright that they illuminated everything around them. Bruce flew for another half hour when he suddenly realized that it was the same cloud he had flown through earlier when he began to gain altitude. But now the cloud had a cylindrical shape, and the plane was right in the middle. It was more than a kilometer wide and seemed simply endless. Bruce thought he would never be able to get out of this trap again. But a minute later he saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Bruce was holding the steering wheel straight ahead. He almost got out of this nightmare, but suddenly inexplicable things started happening again. The walls of the cloud tunnel began to narrow, approaching the planes. One by one, navigation devices began to fail. The compass rotated by itself counterclockwise. All the electronic devices were faulty, as if someone else was controlling the plane, and it was moving by itself inside some kind of current. All Bruce's attempts to take control of the situation were in vain. He continued flying through this strange tunnel, determined to get out of it and survive to tell this story. The walls continued to narrow, getting narrower and narrower, twisting like a whirlwind. Bruce doesn't have any time left. I had to get out of there as soon as possible. The next 20 seconds were the most stressful of his life. But then he finally broke out of this fog trap. As Bruce described later, when his plane left the tunnel for about 5 seconds, he felt weightless until they dispersed, and now the plane was flying in a grayish haze. All the men breathed a sigh of relief. Bruce immediately grabbed a walkie-talkie and contacted ground control, asking to determine his location. But when the dispatcher looked at the green screen, he just changed his face. Bruce's plane was not on the radar, as if it was completely invisible. But then the dispatcher announced that the plane was already in Miami airspace. Bruce was completely shocked. It just couldn't be true. The distance that Beechcraft had to cover was about 400 kilometers. Remember, we said that the whole trip usually took about 90 minutes, but this time it took only 47 minutes to get to your destination. This model of aircraft can only cruise at a speed of about 290 kilometers per hour. As soon as you look at the numbers, anyone will immediately say that this is simply not physically possible. The dispatcher must have made a mistake. But when the clouds cleared, Bruce thought that he was really over Miami. The plane landed safely, and it's time to try to solve this mystery. So what happened on that flight? Bruce checked the remaining fuel and his watch. However, after not long combing out, he got even more confused. The plane didn't use up as much fuel as it should have. Bruce could not be mistaken. He was a very experienced pilot. By the age of 20, he had already had more than 600 flight hours. In addition, he knew this airspace like the back of his hand, because he had flown this route countless times. All the available evidence clearly pointed to the fact that Bruce's plane somehow just skipped almost half of the way. Bruce thought about this strange incident for quite a long time and even consulted with professors and experts. But none of them could explain what happened that day. So he put forward his own theory and even wrote a book about it. Bruce came to the conclusion that it was all about that electric fog with white flashes. Others, however, have suggested that this jump in time was due to dark energy. Yes, the same dark energy, because of which our universe is expanding. This energy could bend space and time like a black hole, forming this strange tunnel. Bruce got into it by accident, and he was very lucky to get out of it. That's why he ended up in Miami airspace so quickly. But dark energy is just a theory that attempts to explain the inexplicable. And yet, how did Bruce manage to cover this distance in such a short time? There is still no answer to this question, but some details can still be explained. Archival records show that 84 sunspots were recorded that day, as well as a huge solar wind moving at a speed of about 700 kilometers per second. This could cause a disturbance in the Earth's magnetosphere, which disabled all the instruments and radar of the aircraft. So Bruce's version that he was in an electric fog could be true. As for strange clouds, this is a fairly common phenomenon in that area. There are constantly colliding zones with low and high, and as a result, thunderclouds appear. Perhaps the clouds growing in front of Bruce's eyes were just two powerful intersecting air currents. However, so far no one has been able to explain how the plane flew to Miami so quickly. But maybe in the future the truth will become known. But for now, this case will be another mysterious mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Subscribe to the channel, put likes and write your comments. See you in the next story.